This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Your now body is the one you accept after letting go of the socially constructed ideal body. It is the body that you accept and inhabit without judgment, and the body you allow to change as it needs to in order to sustain your life. We are not supposed to have the same body we did at 15 years old, at 23. We are not supposed to have the same body we did at 25 years old, at 42. By nature, our body is designed to change and grow. To accept your body now is to accept yourself no matter what your body looks like. By inviting acceptance into our bodily experience, instead of resistance, we allow nature to run its course. Valeria interviews Lindsay Carney. She is the author of Living Over Dieting, a mid-sized girl's guide to reclaiming your life and accepting your now body. Lindsay is a licensed clinical social worker and diet culture survivor. In her private therapy practice, she combines her personal experience with professional expertise to help women overcome body shame and make peace with food. She has a Bachelor of Science in Social Work from Western Kentucky University, 2009, and a Master of Science in Social Work from University of Louisville, 2011. She hosts a private Facebook group for her local community called Louisville Anti-Diet Project, where she shares her healing journey, tips, resources, and events related to intuitive eating and health at every size. Meet Lindsay at lindsaycarneylcsw.com. Here's the interview with Lindsay Carney.
In your own words, who is Lindsay Carney?
I am a creative and a healer. At my core, I would say that's who I am. And I'm also a mother and a wife. I'm a friend. I have a deep passion for just human connection, whether it's in the personal context or the professional context in my work with my clients.
Yes, how wonderful. Creative, healer, and doing this beautiful work of connection, relationships, right? There's something about that. It feels to me now more than ever that this is the reason, if there was a reason for us to be here as human beings, that's one of them.
Yes.
To connect, right, Lindsay, with our own experiences, with our own bodies, mind, content of mind, and then the external world. It's all about connection, isn't it? The way we connect.
Yes, absolutely.
Very, very much feels that way. It's almost that message is screaming to me these days for some reason. So one of my open questions to you is about the idea of health and beauty. So those will be my first questions. You actually asked the question in your book, Living Over Dieting, a mid-sized girl's guide to reclaiming your life and accepting your now body. You say that chapter 5, under honoring your now body, it's not disregarding your health. So you asked that question, what does it mean to be healthy? So that's my question to you. And how do you define beauty as of today?
Yes. So to be healthy, I think involves the mind, the body, and the spiritual self. To be, a lot of times health is defined as being free of injury or free of illness. And then in our culture at times it's defined as having a certain look, a certain body type, size, shape, But health is really more, in my eyes, more of an internal way of being, and also involves the mind quite a bit, I think. I'm a mental health professional, so I definitely emphasize that as well. And then beauty, I love the concept of beauty. And to me, the old kind of saying that beauty is from the inside, I think is so, so true. It is. I find beauty in people that truly embody everything that they are, and how they allow that to be expressed in various ways, in ways that are authentic to them. I find that more beautiful than anything that we can actually visually see and witness.
Wow. Yes, beautifully said. Which it is an idea, a concept, right? Yeah. Wow. I love that, Lindsay. You actually brought everything together, connected everything to the inner world, how from that place we can experience beauty, which has very much, from my perspective too, has to do with love, with creativity, with healing, of course, spirituality. And you did mention that too. So what do you think happened with the human race? What happened to us? Why have we forgotten that? That beauty is not just something that's from the outside, physical. It comes from a different place. How did we arrive here?
That is such a good question. I guess it may depend on how far back we trace that. But when I think about, and I'm not a historian, so I will not probably nail these terms or these sort of periods of time, but I just think about like ancient periods of time, at least from our perspective in the present day. It appears that in ancient times, maybe the human race was less concerned with appearances and materials, and I guess there's a chance that maybe that's not as true as I believe. But I do think as the more society advances, and especially with technology and even with like consumerism, I think, the more attached we become to those ideas of health and those ideas of beauty and love and acceptance, rather than recognizing it's truly an internal sense and an internal experience.
Right. It really feels that way, though. Not that we have evolved to ignore, right? Not appreciate the physical body or what is physical, because there is beauty to be appreciated. I love nature, and I don't see humans apart from nature. We are nature as well. So the different shapes and the different colors of hair and eyes is just so beautiful, everything to me. There's diversity. But it seems like something did happen. I wonder if that also has to do with religion, the idea, right? Maybe they got in the way as well, and people started separating, distancing themselves from the body in the sense of judging it, and then created these opposites, and then some people just rejected those ideas, and then they went the other way, actually, quite the opposite. That's what it seems to me. There's a lot of polarity, a lot of separation and everything bad. You actually mentioned that in the book too. Beautifully, you made a comment about that I wrote here about broccoli doesn't make you good. Something I was laughing at. That's kind of funny, but no amount of kale can make you good, and no amount of French fries can make you bad.
Yeah.
That was cute. True.
That's not an original thought either. That is something I really stumbled upon on social media, and I connected with it immediately.
Yeah, you see, there's trying to separate everything from something that is it's whole. We can't separate what is whole, but it's, I guess, because our minds, right, does that. It really helps that you're a mental professional, that therapist. So talk to me about that, actually. What inspired you to become a therapist, Lindsay?
Oh my. I had an interesting journey to where I am today, actually. I mentioned at the beginning that I am a creative, meaning that I am an artist in many ways. And I come from a family that, like my nuclear family, it wasn't as like hard pressed on us to pursue college. So, and I really struggled with traditional education. I did fine, but I wasn't performing, like highly performing academically. And I kind of walked around with this idea that college wasn't for me and that I wouldn't go. And then I don't know, I had a change of heart senior year of high school, actually, like at the last possible second to decide to go to college. And I did start out pursuing an art major. And I quickly learned that I did not want to do art as a career path, as a way of supporting myself. Because I quickly became burned out on it, and just decided at that moment that I wanted to reserve art as something that I could enjoy and do in my own time when I felt inspired, instead of doing it kind of, I guess, to have a life. So there was a period of time in my college life where I didn't know the direction I wanted to go or what I wanted to study. I didn't feel particularly called to any of the sort of traditional paths of medicine or business or anything. So I was in an on-campus job at the university I was attending, and it was in the school for, I think it was the Human Services Department. And one day I think someone just suggested to me that I should take one of those career assessments that you can find online. And I did that, and it said I should be in the helping profession, in social work. And at the time I had no idea what social work was. I didn't know really much about it. And I just kind of took a chance on it, and it ended up being just a perfect fit for me. And yet, even at that point in my life, I would not have sat here and told you that I was going to be a therapist. That was probably the last thing on my mind at that point. And so my path just kind of brought me into the field of social work. I found myself working at a residential treatment facility for adolescent girls who were in foster care. And I stayed there for a while. And after I graduated with my master's, I was asked to be a therapist, essentially. And I was really hesitant. I didn't think I was cut out for it. I don't think I understood what a therapist was even, or what the role of a therapist is. And I didn't see that for myself. But I, again, took a chance on it and ended up really loving it. And then after my 10 years in that organization, I started my own private practice so that I could be my own boss and see people that I want to see. And so that's honestly how I ended up here. I mean, I can kind of trace back to my childhood and adolescence of always being someone that enjoyed listening to people and helping people, even if it was just a friend of mine going through a breakup or something, And I always found myself in positions where people needed support, and I enjoyed supporting them.
Wow. So, yeah, in a way, you found you, right? The path.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that too, that the most amazing experiences that I have had, I never planned to have them. They just happened, or they came to be. So whatever it's meant to be, it happens. I mean, no matter what, it happens. It's incredible. So I guess this is a good time to talk about the reason why you wrote the book. And so living over dieting. The first question would be this one, has to be this one. I would love to hear about your own healing story as a diet culture survivor.
Oh, yes. I have been a lover of food my entire life. I don't know, just the taste, the physical act of eating. And it was always a comfort for me as well, especially as I grew up and realized kind of my own socially anxious tendencies. I would find a lot of comfort and assurance if I at least had a plate of food I could snack on while I was mingling with whoever, wherever. And particularly with sweets, I had anything sweet or dessert-like or pastry-like. I had a particular hard time with restraint when it came to those types of foods. And I talk about it in my book that I, for a long time, just sort of used it as a point to invite humor into conversations or, make people laugh. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I felt like I had a real problem with food. I felt I was maybe a food addict, which at this point in my personal and professional life, I don't necessarily believe that food can be an addiction, but there's many schools of thought around that. And I can respect those. But at the time, that's what I thought I was dealing with, that or a binge eating disorder. And I was, looking for some help, some answers around that, and for someone to just come in and fix me, basically. And it was through that wondering and that seeking and that pursuit of relief that I found a whole movement around kind of rejecting the idea that weight loss is the ultimate goal. And I just began kind of learning and applying a lot of the intuitive eating principles and concepts of health at every size. And ever since then, I've been a huge advocate for that as a way for women to free themselves from this sort of vicious cycle of dieting.
Wow. That's such an interesting topic. And then it came to me just yesterday, I think I interviewed somebody about dieting as well, somebody was against dieting. But then a month ago, I interviewed somebody who is actually doing the opposite. He's advocating for weight loss and showing the pictures, before and after and all that. He did talk a lot about addiction, that even when I talked to him about eating pasta my husband and I, we make seafood pasta every Friday. Then he stopped me even. He said, that's an addiction. And I was laughing because it doesn't feel like an addiction. I was trying to, trying to create an argument or anything, because I usually don't do that. And I just kind of, I laughed because it didn't feel true to me what he said. An addiction, it didn't feel true. So instead of becoming defensive or anything like that, I kind of laughed, and I was trying to understand more, going deeper into it. So I asked a lot of questions. But it seems to me why people keep trying to change their bodies, because they don't understand the fundamental truth that you speak of in the book, that the body changes, everything changes. That's the natural progress of anything that's material, right? That's nature-based. It will change. The problem is that we tend not to accept change really well. And we resist, right, Lindsay? We fight change. Or even differences, which is interesting. This thing about comparing, it's another problem, isn't it? To look at someone else's body and compare with ours. Right. It's something that happens a lot with women, I guess, too. Sadly, probably with men too. I actually see that this happening. So for me, everything goes back to spirituality, in a sense of knowing your own truth, that we are not just the body and mind, just going deeper into what we are, not even who we are. And you mentioned that in the book as well. I will ask you more questions about that. But before that, I want to mention some of the messages in your book that caught my attention. You say, to accept your now body is to accept yourself no matter what your body looks like. That's just very profound. I actually have this as the title for this episode.
Oh,
it had to be it. I'm like, I was like, my God, this is it. To accept your now body is to accept yourself. And that's true. So talk to me about self-love, self-acceptance. Why is it such a challenge for most of us to dive in, to just dance with that?
Sure. Honestly, I think one of the real simple reasons why it's so hard for us is because we inhabit our body, we inhabit our being, and we are forced to be with it every day. And I think that we grow tired of ourselves. I think that's kind of one of the main reasons. And I do think there's a lot of messaging in our culture and our society about, if you don't like something, change it. Well, if I don't, so then you apply that to yourself. And if I don't like myself, I should change myself. And for a lot of people that will look like not liking their body means they work to change it and they put the work in.
I never thought it that way. I'm sure I
Mhm.
heard something like that, but you just kind of brought this to my attention about trying to change something in a sense of fixing, right? Trying to correct. I love the idea of change, though. Of course, I embrace change, but in a healthy way, to me, it looks like creativity. So being creative, and then creative and also healthy in a sense of doing something that perhaps I was afraid to do. So it's a challenge in that sense. It becomes fun that way, more playful. Like I have been in the fitness industry for a long time. I was never overweight. And I got myself into this dieting thing because it was training to compete as a fitness competitor and all that. And then I remember becoming obsessed with food because I was starving the body for so long, 3 months. And then I was eating everything, and I felt something was not that it was wrong. It was just out of balance. I notice now more than ever that doesn't feel, say, there's no harmony in the sense of peace even when I'm constantly thinking about something. I'm almost obsessed about something.
Yeah.
So that doesn't feel, it could be anything, actually anything, trying to solve a problem, to be here, to be with you, like an interview, if I'm obsessing like for 3-5 days. Sometimes I do that when I interview scientists because it's very different from my perspective, more spiritual. And then when I have scientists here, it's, and then the mind becomes almost like fearful or somehow trying to over-prepare and all that. So when I see some obsession there, so the mind becomes obsessed with that. And then there's a sense of peace and happiness disappears. And then just in this constant fighting something. So I guess it happens with what you're saying with the change when it becomes an obsession though. And then then obviously it's not healthy. But other than that, it would be a wonderful thing, right, Lindsay, to just change, but for the sake of being creative, of trying something new. Let me see what that looks like. If I work out for a whole month and I do push-ups, let me see what would happen. But with joy, with enjoyment, though, it has, right? It has to be there, that piece. So I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, talk to me about that, this idea of enjoying, challenges when it comes to change. If you want to change something, not in the sense of correcting, but it's just, doing something never done before. I actually love those things. And being strong too, because strength is also something that is important when it comes to mental strength, in a sense of resilience. It's important to become resilient too, which the body helps when we train the body.
Yes, I definitely agree. I love the way you framed change as a creative process. You're teaching me something.
Oh my, no, I think we are just kind of exchange. I never talked about this before. Isn't it? You inspiring me to say these things. It's just because it's something that I've been learning recently, perhaps. And then it has been my experience. I come from a spiritual background. I had a lot of childhood abuse, severely traumatized as a child, and then not knowing how to behave and what to do, making actually bad choices all the time because I couldn't trust myself. Instead of therapy, I look for answers in the spiritual, let's say, world, but not in the sense of going to religion. And I remember I did that, but it's most philosophy, Zen Buddhism. I did Tibetan Buddhism. And now for 10 years, I'm a student of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, which is non-duality. It's just a beautiful philosophy on the interconnectedness of everything.
Right.
So it's all about connection when it comes to Vedanta. So that's what it really, my heart just opened when I heard about the philosophy. Like, wow, that's it. That's it. Yeah. So, but talk to me about do you have any spiritual understandings of yourself in life beyond the body mind?
Yes, is the short answer.
Yeah.
I have always appreciated and deeply connected with my spiritual self and what I believe now to be God. And that has looked very different in different phases of my life. And I noticed that the hardship that I was faced with at certain periods would always sort of buck up against those beliefs and that sense of there's something bigger than me.
Yeah.
And has always led me to, at times, it would lead me to questioning and doubting and wanting to almost kind of shut down that part of myself. And other times it would, send me in a direction of seeking and hoping and praying. And so I would say, like, I am still somewhat on that journey and really trying to discern for myself what I believe to be true. And right now, in this present time, it is, I believe in a triune God. God is spirit, and God is God, and God is at one time was man as Jesus Christ. And I'm just trying to press in and learn more about that.
Wow. Yeah. I love how genuine you are. It's really beautiful. You said that before, actually, the spiritual self. You said it that way, and you just repeated exactly the same phrase. What does it feel like, Lindsay, when you are in touch with that? Are you able to describe?
Words are hard to describe that, I feel like. I'm sure you can relate to that. I think it's a sense of wholeness and a sense of feeling sort of anchored and rooted in something, but also at the same time an openness and a joy and a peace. That's how I would describe it in our language today.
Yeah, it's beautiful though. Yeah, I very much relate to it. It resonates with me. You see the sense of wholeness, for some reason, that word, there's something about that. I was involved in a lot of practices, meditation, so I went as deep as I could to find out my own truth. And then in the end, if this was the end, it's that my truth is actually everyone's truth, but takes that personal journey to be able to meet that truth and embrace that truth, because it cannot be passed on like that. I cannot tell you the truth because it doesn't work. But I found that, now I would summarize in something that has been very empowering for me as a body mind. It's that I am what I'm looking for. There's nothing missing. Nothing.
Yeah.
That is really, in period, really. That's it. So everything else becomes like this journey of exploration, of curiosity. It becomes fun and playful then, because when you come from that place, as you call it wholeness, that's exactly it. Like, I'm whole. This is it. I am what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And that changed everything for me, that understanding. I don't know I should ask you, what does it sound like when you hear that? And how many of us can understand, really embody that? I know it seems abstract, right? But it's very real to me.
Very abstract, yes. And I'm so glad you brought that word into the conversation, because that's something that I recently connected with, was just the abstractness of the way that I think and the way that I function, and just the type of life I cultivate is very abstract, and the way I communicate as well is very abstract.
But it's real to you, isn't it? It feels real
absolutely.
To you, right, Lindsay? That's what matters, right?
Yes, and you're right. There does seem to be sort of places where that is almost as if, like, to see and think and communicate in those terms for some people is difficult. And I do see that a lot.
Yes, right. And I'm wondering if most of us actually are trying to communicate that, come from that place, I am enough. I am what I'm looking for. Everything is here. But then because we get confused with all the other messages, right? That we are not enough. There's always something to do, or something, to be worth it. We have to do this and that and that. And then there's a lot of confusion and doubt, actually. In my case, it was confusion, doubt, and all that all together. So, and
right.
I wonder if that happens to most people, especially women.
Yeah.
That might be the case, right? Doubting themselves. Let me go back to the idea of the book. I mean, the message, choosing living over dieting. So the title of the book is Living Over Dieting. What does it look like as of today, Lindsay, this message, embodying this message? What would that look like on a daily basis?
It looks like spending my energy, my mental energy, my physical energy, my emotional energy on all things that are in the now and the present moment, and in the people that I love, and being able to be present in my experiences, fully engaged, fully present, and not concerning myself with my body in the way that I used to.
You see, without that concern, that's really wonderful. Is that most of the people that you see, your clients, are they in need of help in this area? Or do you see people with different kinds of issues?
Ooh, I see quite a few people for this specific issue. And then many of those individuals also have other issues as well, such as trauma or anxiety. And then I also do see individuals that don't have, issues with their food relationship or their relationship with their body. And I'm very excited about this. I recently got trained in EMDR, which is desensitization and reprocessing.
Yes.
And I've been integrating that into some of my work with my clients, and it's been a beautiful process.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, EMDR. I have, of course, interviewed a lot of people.
I noticed.
Yeah, it's amazing. Have you heard about brain spotting too?
Yes, I have. Yes.
I just interviewed somebody recently about that. And it's incredible. It's similar.
Look at that.
Yeah, but not the same. The way she described, it was a lot more holistic, a lot more open too. It's almost like the therapist doesn't assume to know anything. It's very curious, open, and just kind of, it's this co-creation, that navigating the challenge together, but open to what can come up, what could come up, without assuming to know the answers. So that kind of caught my attention. She said that was the main difference between EMDR and brain spotting. That brain spotting is more, in a way, more, she didn't say spiritual, she said holistic, but I saw that, I interpreted it as spiritual. Like, oh my God, that's a spiritual thing. It's scientific, but it's spiritual in my eyes.
That's so interesting.
So let's see. I want to go through some of the messages in your book that caught my attention. You said under the, I think it's the chapter 1, fighting a war against our bodies. How did we get here? I actually asked that question before. And then you said, human beings have an innate desire for belonging and purpose. For women, we inherit the cultural belief that belonging and purpose are found only when we are attractive, which is first measured by our weight. So that caught my attention. In a sad way, it makes you reflect about the way we are living and we have been living. It's not really helping. And I always wonder what will, come up next, in a sense of what will change this in a massive way. And I know I thank you again for your work as a therapist, because we do need that. People that can guide others to see the truth for themselves. But I do think that's why I keep bringing, I guess, spirituality. Everyone that I talk here, they're most scientists of the mind, people like yourself, therapists, also spiritual teachers, but not as many. And then I bring the piece of spirituality, because it has been my path that helped me with complex trauma, PTSD, and really it changed everything by going deeper. Of course, I did a lot of healing work, energy healing. It was different. For some reason, therapy was not my path. And I always wondered why, but it was not an option, I guess. So it was easier to go spiritual. But it's beautiful to see the combination too, Lindsay. I noticed some people who do both, or therapists who bring spirituality into their practices. Spirituality in a sense of knowing oneself. Basically, this is the work you do anyway, right? The exploration of who we are, what we are.
Exactly.
You just made me reflect. The more I read about these things, like, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, the way humans have been behaving, especially women. Of course, intuitively I did, but not with so much clarity, because you're very clear about these things. You also wrote, resisting and fighting against our now body distracts us from connecting with our whole self. That also was a beautiful message that resonated true to me. And then I love in the end of each chapter, you write a letter, dear reader, and then you write, you talk to them. You even changed to handwriting kind of font. That also caught my attention. There's one that you say, dear reader, your body image is going to fluctuate, but your worth doesn't. Consider inviting compassion and kindness into your relationship with your body. You said more than that, but this part here caught my attention. Then you said something else. Gosh, just so many things, too many things you said that caught my attention. Too many. You said you're not responsible for the cultural programming you received about the ideal body. So that was a message too. And then when I read that, what came to me was, yes, we are not responsible for what happened to us, like all the stuff that I was thinking about my childhood and all that. Yes. But I only matured and I only became, let's say, sufficiently healed by being responsible for what I was not responsible for. That's when that also changed everything. That really did. I know, because I kept saying that to myself, I'm not responsible, for what they did. But then I was not accepting, the responsibility for what I was not responsible for. So I was not helping. I was accepting that changed everything too. It opened the mind, I guess, I would say. Yes. Would you like to make a comment, Lindsay, about that passage?
About the passage?
Yeah, on acceptance and
the concept of acceptance. I think it's really foundational to a lot of the work that I do. There's a quote, and I don't remember who said it, and it says something along the lines of, our pain that we associate with our struggles is not... It's not the pain that we need to fix or get rid of or avoid. It's our attachment to the pain, essentially. So, invite radical acceptance.
Yes.
And so, I think that pairs really well with what you said about accepting responsibility for what you aren't responsible for, and just accepting that's what that was. It was not your responsibility.
Yes. Yeah, I love that too, what he said. There's about being attached to pain, right? That was definitely the brain's decision. I don't even say my decision, but the brain was doing that automatically, right? Because that's what I think, as you know, trauma changed the brain. So now we're seeing reality, right? Perceiving the world completely different from those lens of trauma. And I actually interviewed somebody who asked a very interesting question in his book. He talks about control, like, are we in control as we are being traumatized? Or how much control do we really have on the experience of trauma? And then the other question was, and then how are we in control when we are responding and living, experiencing life from trauma? Too. So in a way, he's saying that, because I think in his case, he saw his mother being killed by his father. So it was huge trauma for him, obviously. And then he was lost for a while, just making bad decisions. He became violent, actually. So, and then why do some people become violent? They become abusers, actually. They reflect the violence that was inflicted on them. And then some people don't. They actually become the opposite in a way, right, Lindsay? They become beautiful people, compassionate people. Do you have an answer for that somehow?
I was going to say I do, but that also sounds very... I don't know, very assured, I think. And what I believe the answer to be may not fit every situation. But what I do know is that healing happens in relationships.
Ah.
And when we experience trauma at any degree, we need, especially like children and childhood trauma, they need a secure and attentive adult or caregiver to enter in to that space with them and help them co-regulate, help them heal, help them sort of recover from that. And so I've seen that to be the biggest difference. Like children or adolescents or even individual adults who go through something traumatic, if they don't have a safe person, if they don't have a person who they trust and can co-regulate with, if they don't have that, that's when, the risk of becoming the abuser or, going on to self-destructive habits is more likely. Whereas those that have a supportive other, as I mentioned, are much more likely to develop that resilience and be able to, in a sense, recover and be better individuals in the future.
Right. The interesting thing is that it's almost like in order to heal from relational trauma, we need to go back to it. We got to go back to relationships, right? It's like, it's the antidote. It's almost like, somebody said it beautifully that I can't remember the way she said about the same environment that have traumatized us is the one that will heal us as well. The same.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? It has been my case for sure. Yeah. Through relationships, finding that trust again. And it hasn't been easy. It's interesting to see that the trauma still lives on. So we're almost at the end. Gosh, Lindsay, and I have so many other questions. I want to make, thank you so much again for your presence in this conversation. It has been wonderful. I want to mention the exercise too that caught my attention in your book. I think chapter 4, connecting the dots between adversity and health. Then you have the grounding in the present moment exercise. So I love that. I guess I made a note here because I heard recently that trauma is the inability to be in the present moment.
Wow.
So that was one of the ways to describe trauma. That I never heard it that way before. That really made sense to me.
Yeah.
And then honoring your now body, it's not disregarding your health. You also said something beautifully that letter that you write, dear reader, you say, give your body permission to be. I mean, you said more than that, but that really kind of opened the heart. Give your body permission to be, right? Because the body's so intelligent anyway. I mean, it's keeping us alive regardless, right? It's doing its thing. It's so intelligent. And then I love the section about intuitive eating, inviting intuitive eating. So there you talk about that, the diet mentality, you talk about the anti-diet mentality, and then you talk about the diet culture portrays. And then the hunger. Oh, yeah. You talk about the different kinds of hunger that I never heard it that way before either. Physical hunger, emotional hunger, practical hunger, and taste hunger. I wish we had more time to go through all this. And then you talk about the principles of intuitive eating. How many of them? I wrote them down, 10 of them. Oh, my God. This would be like another podcast conversation in itself. Intuitive eating itself is just so interesting, that topic. Yeah, talk to me for a moment about that. In a nutshell, per se, what is intuitive eating?
The short version that I will give people in the beginning when I'm introducing the topic is intuitive eating is exactly how we ate when we were infants.
Yes.
We had a cue for hunger and we would cry out for food and that need would be met and we would be satisfied. We would be full. And then 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours later, depending on each individual baby, there would be hunger again. And it wasn't anything we had to ignore or suppress or trick our minds out of feeling, or our bodies out of feeling. And that's kind of my little introductory metaphor, I guess, for what intuitive eating is.
Sounds natural, doesn't it? You're just living naturally.
Absolutely.
Listening to your body. Another thing I think you mentioned about, trying to keep the stomach in. A lot of people do that. And you see babies, they just have this beautiful round stomachs, and they're the happiest creatures on earth. It's like the cutest thing ever. They're so happy because it's almost like they don't have a body. They're
Exactly.
right. They're just like in this state of joy it's so beautiful. And you wish, for humans to be more like that, to come to that understanding one of these, really return to it. Right, Lindsay? It's a return to where we were before, right? It's not really it's not really discovering, but uncovering, going back to it. So I love there's the chapter in your book 10, I think it's the last one, Reclaiming Your Life. There you quoted Eckhart Tolle. I have read, of course, his work. He says, you find peace not by rearranging the circumstances of your life, but by realizing who you are at the deepest level. Yeah, that's very spiritual. Because as we talked earlier, finding that spiritual self, what is here now, has been here, that it doesn't really require even the body mind for me to exist and to be present and to have that sense of peace and joy. So it's really going deep. And then to me, it's not even, I don't know, I say that where I use the word deep too, but there's something about, it's always here actually. It's not as deep as we think it is, or hidden really, right? It's always here.
Mm-hmm.
So Lindsay, thank you so much again for your presence. And before we say goodbye, would you like to add anything? Would you like to say anything that you left unsaid, or read a passage in your book?
I can't think of anything else I would like to add. I did mark a couple spots in the book, and I think one of them you might have already highlighted here for us. So I will just I have a brief one that I will read. It's one of the Dear Readers that I love. Dear Reader, your body is a part of you. Your body has nothing to do with the essence of who you are. You are more than a constellation of muscle, fat, and organs. You are a whole person. To be whole is to embody everything that is authentically you in the body you have right now. The way your body moves, looks, folds, creases, or fits is the least interesting thing about you. Don't let your dissatisfaction with your body rule your life.
Wow, that's a beautiful one. Gosh, I missed that one somehow. That's a beautiful one. Wow, very profound. Thank you so much again, Lindsay, for being you, for being open to life, for being vulnerable, for being genuine. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Wow. Before we say goodbye, where's the best place to find more information about you and your book?
Oh, yeah, probably... My Instagram is probably the most up-to-date. It's at Living Over Dieting. I do have a website, and it's lindsaycarneylcsw.com. And then, of course, I'm on Facebook as well. It's just Lindsay Carney.
Yes. So I have here, let me just make sure I have the website link. Yes, I do have the website link, and I'll have the Instagram handle there as well. Thank you so much again, Lindsay, and we'll talk soon. Take good care of your beautiful self.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Lindsay Carney and her work, please visit lindsaycarneylcsw.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.